I mean, what do you hope to achieve with this establishment?
A more humane society. I would like to see, and I'm not going to see it myself because I'm I'm not stupid. I know this is going to take time, but I want to make a dent in the status quo. We're going to make a dent. We already are, but we're very, very few, very little, the people that I've been working with. So what I would like to see is more transparency. But for there to be transparency isn't just this full disclosure, it's transparency of the human being, one with another. Because this is where we begin. If we can begin to instill, I mean, nobody trusts. It's so incredibly widespread. Nobody trusts, not even their wives and husbands fully. There are secrets all the time. Why? And this ridiculous notion of privacy is everything is just to enclose and create more separation from one another. Now this has got to be done gradually, and it's got to be done sweetly, because nobody wants to give up their privacy or their secrets. But you need to understand that when you look at another human being, you're seeing their projection, who they want you to see, their identity. And you are not your identity. You are what's underneath your identity. Mm-hmm. You are what's forged this identity as you grew up in college and later professionally. And sometimes you believe you are this, but there's a lot of stuff going on underneath. So what I hope to is reach the professionals who come here and the leaders, already some who are leading, others who are potential leaders. This is one of the criteria that we use for admissions here. This is the purpose that we create, that we instill this in the world, that we that people go out there and embody it and change whatever field they're in, and that some will teach. Mm-hmm. Many will teach, many schools will arise, but basically it's just go right back where you came from, and very gently and lovingly and intelligently, which is most important, start changing things in your workspace, in your home, in your treatment of people. So this can affect, Alec, this can affect, hopefully it will affect something of politics. I mean, that may be the very last thing it affects. But it might affect first, hopefully, the educational system. Mm-hmm. I worked with adolescents in South America, in Brazil. And it's beautiful, but they had to be the children of the people who I was working with, because you change the mind of an adolescent, and if they go home, and the parents are not aware of what they're doing, they're going to have a really strong trauma. And so it can begin with the educational system, the way that we teach kids, even history, the direct, more experiential approach. I mean, I think Rudolf Steiner had something in mind when he started creating the Steiner system, like this, where the individual being has a lot more say in its development than a system does upon it. And the world of politics, economy, for God's sake. We're seeing very, very, very few traces of this, but unfortunately our society is so segmented, and now even more so. I think the whole COVID thing has served to separate even those that are called themselves light workers, who are in this kind of revolutionary inner state of mind. The idea of applying the experiences that you've had in your intimacy with one another. I mean, the trite word again, love. Loving one another. And you tell this to a businessman, he's going to say, what? Who am I going to love? I mean, I've got to calculate, I've got to see this, I've got to need results. And I've got to make money. So it's all tied in together.
Dare I say, sort of bringing love to everyday life? Is that
Into our relationships with people. To begin, and then this will allow you to see. You know that when you're in love, you see things that you do not see when you're not in love. So if you don't care about somebody, you just see their image.
But would it be is it another way of regarding simply the word empathy? Bring empathy to everyday life? Or...
Empathy can fall into an emotional molasses. So and so can compassion, misused. It is both empathy and compassion, but from this clear perspective of the inner self. This is why all work begins with the self. It's got to come from the mind heart. And I'm saying mind and pointing to the heart, because to me this is the real intelligence. It only arises in that state. Then you can really clearly see the present, where this comes from, and the implications, the possible implications in the future. This is why it's so important that business leaders are trained in seeing and managing their own energies, so that they can manage, see, and orient the world that they're leading. Okay, politicians, I don't even dare approach at this moment. And this is just a very theoretical concept, and that's very complicated, because you're dealing with masses, you're dealing with interests, you're dealing with all kinds of vested priorities. But let's take the business. And this has been said for years, because I followed some of the vocabulary. When you work on yourself, and you work on creating a community or fraternity within the company, then you're going to give more, or you're going to give more of yourself. But this has all been dealt with superficially. Let's go and play some games. Let's spend a weekend together where we create some bonds. But it's all superficial. So I go back, and there's the same pecking order, and there's the same kind of thrill with authority and power, and the same submission. So there's got to be a change when you have somebody who is in charge, a VIP, and begins to understand human nature. It's going to treat its employees entirely different and allow them to grow and train them in turn. When you have a group of people who are working like this, I can only speak from my own experience, as I told you at the beginning. I don't do anything that I have not explored and felt myself. In creating our group of people, we are one unit. I had tremendous difficulty explaining to people how my teachers work. They're not just teaching in a classroom one thing and the other one teaches another, which is a traditional way. We're all together in everything. It might be hard to understand that, but when you're together in the purpose. Now, businesses have purpose, but do they have ideals? And here's where we come into the heart intelligence. That's an ideal. And all of these people, men and women, at some point were children, and they all had ideals. What happened to that? I want to see beauty. Okay, but we're in a world that is not exactly beautiful. How are we going to create that beauty? So we begin by embodying the concept of beauty in ourselves with enough control over our energies that we are not managed, we're not shaken up by events around us, where we can be an instrument and an example of that. And this is what I hope that the people trained here will be. A hope is more than a hope, is my expectation. That the people here will be able to go out there, they'll be strong. They'll be strong in this world. They'll be strong to be able to say yes and to be able to say no with conviction. But within that, there is this intelligence that is sensitive. So I always speak to the heart as the place of sensitive intelligence. That they will be able to reach people and orient people in the right way. And I do think it begins with businesses.